Do you ever walk into a quilt show and you feel your jaw actually drop? Not because you're comparing yourself, but because you are in the presence of some kind of fabric wizardry that makes you whisper, how even is that possible? Yeah, that right there. That's what we're talking about today. Hey, friend, welcome back to Loose Threads and Stitches, the podcast that feels like a cozy stitch night with your favorite quilting buddy. I'm your host, Kristen, and today we're talking about quilt shows. Not in the, ooh, look at that blue ribbon winner kind of way, but in the what these magical spaces do for your creative souls kind of way. So new episodes of this podcast drop every single week. So if you haven't already, be sure to hit follow so that you never miss one of our chats. Let's get one thing straight right out the gate. Quilt shows are not meant to make you feel small, okay? But ooh, do they sometimes try? You walk in, especially if you're like really in the beginner stages of your quilting journey, you see the intricate paper piecing, the insane hand quilting, the color stories that look like a sunset got jealous, and suddenly you're like, well, I'm just gonna go home and fold fabric for the rest of my life because I can't do that right there. Yeah. I've been there too, okay? I've been staring at some show-stopping quilts and thinking mine would never even be allowed in the parking lot of this place, okay? But here's the truth that I want to share with you today. Quilt shows aren't about comparison, okay? They are about celebration. They are the red carpets of our quirky, brilliant, deeply creative community. And whether it is a world famous expo or a sweet little church fellowship hall with lemonade in the back, quilt shows remind us what's possible with a needle, thread, and a little bit of imagination. And listen, the big shows, I love them. They are jaw-dropping, but don't sleep on going to the little shows, okay? Like, support your local community. I once saw a log cabin quilt at a tiny local guild show out of town that had hand-stitched prairie points that were so perfect. I swear that they were like otherworldly, okay? And the maker of this quilt was a adorable 93-year-old woman that was sassier than my toddlers at the time, okay? So these small shows are just like, they're the heartbeat of our quilt world. They are where new quilters get brave, where seasoned stitchers share their wisdom, and where you find a half-finished kit from like 1997 and a new best friend named Barb. If you really tune in at a quilt show, like slow down and look, you will notice that every single quilt is whispering a story. Some of them are heartbreak, some of them are healing, joy, curiosity, and sometimes it's just plain chaos. And that's the beauty of it. There's no two quilts, or quilters for that matter, are ever going to be the same. It doesn't matter if you and your bestie make the same pattern with the same fabric. Those quilts are not going to be equal. They're not going to be the same. They are each going to have their own personality, their own quirks, their own little places where the seams didn't quite match up just right, okay? Like, you are going to know that quilt inside and out. So instead of walking through a show and thinking, I absolutely could never, I want you to try this instead. I want you to walk through that show and I want you to look for, what can I try to make next? Like, what is inspiring me at this moment? Because I believe that when one of us shines, we all get a little bit brighter. Quick story time here. There was a quilt that I saw, I believe it was at Quilt Festival one year, and then it ended up at QuiltCon the following year, because I remember being so impressed with this quilt. It was just white fabric that was pieced together, but it was a thin enough fabric that, like, the artist, and I can't remember the name right off the top of my head right now, I could probably go back and find it, but the artist pieced with neon thread. So it was not visible on the outside, but if you looked really closely, you could see that neon thread coming through that really thin white fabric. And it just took the whole quilt to like a whole different dimensionality. Like I was just in awe at like the level of detail that was put into it. So, you will never know who you inspire with what you make. You will never know what you're going to find at these shows as well. And hey, if you've ever walked out of a quilt booth or a quilt show and you're feeling inspired as well as a little bit overwhelmed, I got a lot of videos that will help you go from comparison to celebration, okay? It is a short and sweet little journey, and it will help you shift that inner critic in you into a cheerleader. All right. It's something that takes work. And I'm going to put a couple videos down in the description box down below of videos that I think would really help that path as well. Here's the truth, my friend. Quilt shows aren't about who's best. There's ribbons, and those amazing pieces of art definitely deserve recognition. But quilt shows are about bearing witness to what is possible in our industry. They're reminders that art's not perfect, okay? It's personal. There is room in this patchwork world for every single voice, for every single vision, for every oddly shaped flying goose. Geese? Flying goose. Flying goose? We're going to go with flying goose, okay? For every single oddly shaped flying, whatever you want to call it, okay? So I encourage you, when you see a show come up in your area, go. Even if you're by yourself, you can gasp at some of those quilts. You can giggle at some of them. You can gawk at them, and you can support the vendors that are helping our industry, okay? Compliment the quilters if they're standing next to their quilt. And above all, let yourself be moved by those quilts, not measured. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you loved this episode, share it with a fellow quilty friend who needs a reminder that his or her work matters in this world. So please be sure to follow this podcast, and I will see you next week. Until then, take a breath, go pet your fabric, and remember that your stitches matter, even if no one hangs them up in a show. Okay, your stitches matter. I love you. I'm Kristen with Icy Stars Quilting. I'll see you next week. Bye.